Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona, producer Bobby helping us out as we'll head over to Del Mar, preview a couple of big graded stakes races for you this weekend. But before we do, we want to let you know about the Black Friday sale currently going on right now at Daily Racing Form. You can head to shop.drf.com, use that coupon code for 20% off all of your favorite daily racing form tools like the past performances, the clocker reports. You can save up now, so when you need them later, you'll already have those savings. Check out the Black Friday sale at shop.drf.com. David, I always forget how good of a weekend Thanksgiving weekend is when it comes to racing. Really good quality out on the West Coast. Churchill has some good stuff. Fairground starting. This race, the Grade 2 Seabiscuit Handicap, that was a solid field where you have a couple horses who I feel like will take some money. Towards the outside, Stay Hot has gotten very sharp last couple races, but he's been going a little bit longer. And then you have El Potente, who looked like he was really moving towards the top of the mile division out in California before he got injured a little earlier on in the year. We haven't seen him since February. I think those two are two horses you can kind of start the conversation with.
Yeah, and I think of those, in a lot of ways, El Potente is kind of the key to this race because if he returns in the form that he left us with that victory in the Thunder Road, where he looked like he was on the precipice of maybe earning a Grade 1 victory the next month, obviously they didn't come to fruition, but if he can be ready off the layoff, he could be pretty tough for this field.
Let's see how Timeform US thinks this race will shape up. We'll look at the pace projector here. El Potente is quick, David, and he's coming off the bench, so you think he might be a little bit fresh even, but he's not a need the lead type horse. He showed us that he can sit off, and that was one thing that really impressed me during the year, earlier in the year, and at the end of 2025, 2024, when he was really getting good. He showed us that he can flip off, he can relax a little bit, so he doesn't have to get caught up in a duel. But I'd imagine Astronomer wants to be close, and we know Cabo Spirit is always either on the lead or very close to it.
Yeah, I do wonder if El Potente is going to be a little bit keen coming off the layoff. And if he runs off on the front end, that could be a tough trip for him to pull, especially over a turf course like Del Mar. Cabo Spirit, as you said, he's a horse that does some of his best running when he's forward. Another one that doesn't need the lead. He'd be happy to have it if they decide to rate El Potente. Maybe they'll be concerned about fitness coming off the layoff. But those feel like the two that will go out. Astronomer, he can be forward, but he's more of a sit, stalk, and pounce type.
The Grade 2 Seabiscuit Handicap is going to go as race number 5 on Saturday, November the 29th at Del Mar. Let's meet the field for this one. $200,000 up for grabs, mile and a 16th on the turf course. We start out with the number 1, Scoobie Quando, coming off of a fifth place finish. That was in the City of Hope mile where he was behind Cabo Spirit and Almendares. And that was actually a career best effort from a Beyer speed figure scale, David. So even his best still seemed like it was kind of a cut below some of the contenders in here. I think he's going to need to step up with another, improvement to, crack the top 3 or get in the mix here.
Yeah, when you go way back in his past performances, this was a horse that showed promise over the synthetic course at Turfway early in his career. He's always kind of been trying to build on that form and has never really gotten there, been stuck at the allowance level for much of the past couple of seasons. And I just can't really get too excited about either of the performances that we've seen out of him since coming into the McCarthy barn in Southern California.
We move to Sumpter. Sumter's got a funny form if you look at his recent past performances, because his only couple wins in the last few years were in the same race, in the Lure, and it almost set up the exact same way for him in years, David, where there was a runoff leader. He kind of sat second or third, and he was the one that moved early and got the jump, and he ran really well in the Lure both this year and last year. But if you look at that particular field, that October 18th race, that field was really, really weak in the Lure. I think the second place finisher, St. Anthony, is 0 for his last 9. The third place finisher, Watsonville, 0 for the last 5. Goliad, the fourth place finisher, 0 for the last 5. The fifth place finisher, Mystic Spirit, is 0 for the last 9. And the horse who was actually favored in that race, David, was a horse named Nesso's Last Hurrah. He had a bad start and was last throughout, so he didn't even really get a chance in that race. I just feel like Sumpter is going to be facing a much tougher group on Saturday than he did winning this race we're looking at here.
Yeah, Gino, I really don't have a whole lot to add to that assessment of the race. I had the same concerns about the horse that finishing behind him in there. Just didn't feel like they were either in the best form or of the best quality. So this is a big step up. And the other thing I'll add about Sumpter is it always feels like even a step beyond a mile is just stretching this horse's stamina to the limit. So I wonder a little bit about the mile and the 16th distance.
Yeah, last year he won the Lure. He went into the Seabiscuit. He ended up finishing 11th in that race. Just didn't really fire all that well. We moved to Almendares. He's a stakes winner. He has 10 races in graded stakes, and he's been really competitive. 4 seconds, 3 thirds, a fourth and a fifth and a ninth. He's only been beaten 2 lengths once in 10 tries against Graded Stakes Company. So it shows you he fits with these group, but he hasn't had a big win yet. I do think this is a really good spot for him, David, to possibly get his first Graded Stakes win, because it's a competitive group with 3 or 4 that I think could win, but it doesn't feel like there's any monsters here. There's no Johannes, formidable man who you see in his past performances. I think he's as good as a lot of this group.
Yeah, he's just really easy to like in this race for all the reasons you mentioned. He's so consistent. He runs really well at Del Mar. Actually, all 3 of his turf victories in his career have come over this Del Mar turf course, and he just projects to get a pretty good trip in this race. If horses like El Potente and Cabo Spirit hook up on the front end, Almendares should be closing, and it's not like he's the kind of closer that needs to come from a mile out of it. He should have pretty good position. He drew well. John Velasquez has been riding in excellent form in stakes races over the past few months, so it doesn't hurt to get him on board.
We move to call sign 7, lightly raced 4-year-old, but he's been off for 9 months now. It just kind of feels like a weird spot for him in here off that long layoff. He was well defeated in his lone try versus stakes. And I know it doesn't always work this way, David, but daily racing form, we're talking about buyer speed figures. His buyer top is 86, and the next lowest in the field is 93. And we have 5 horses in here who have been at a 99 or above. So he just feels like he's going to have to get a lot faster.
Yeah, he's a deep, deep closer who's going to have a real deficit to overcome in this race. Well, I said that there's a little bit of pace in here. I don't think it's going to be a total pace collapse, and that's what this horse needs. That's what he got when he won 2 back at Santa Anita. That's actually a fun replay to watch because it looks unbelievable. He's going to get there from the top of the stretch. I think even the race announcer was fooled calling the horse who finished second the winner at the 16th pole. This horse came with a big late run, but that race completely fell apart. Hard to envision that same thing happening here.
El Potente is a grade 3 winner who is in such good form. Last we saw him, problem is, last we saw him was back in February. So now a 10-month layoff to deal with. They looked up the last 5 years for Dan Blacker off this type of a layoff plus 180 days. 6 for 44, 14% with a $1.14 ROI. I kept looking because I was like, straight no chaser, where is he? But he was coming off a 176-day layoff, so he didn't qualify in there. But we remember he actually came back. He ran 3rd off of that long layoff when he was trying to prep for the Breeders' Cup. But what it really impressed me, David, was in the 10 starts for Dan Blacker, El Potente has 6 wins, 2 seconds, and 2/3. Just incredible form for this barn. And he actually does have a win at 1.125 miles. So if you're worried about distance, getting more than a mile, he's proven he can actually get 1.125 miles as well. So lots of things to like about him, but very easy to question the long layoff and if he'll be at his absolute best.
I mean, he has at least come back from layoffs in the past. He has not done so coming off the kind of performance that we are looking at here when he earned this 104 buyer to win the Thunder Road. And this is a race that has aged pretty well, Gino. Some horses came back out of this to run competitively in, I think it was the Shoemaker Mile, the next grade 1 in Southern California after this. And he just absolutely smashed this field on this occasion, stalking the pace before opening up in the stretch. I will say that performance would make him too good for this field. His other performances on his resume just make him another one of the contenders in this race. I don't think they make him a standout. So you do wonder what happened for him to go to the sidelines after the career best performance. Are we going to see that kind of effort again after he was away for so long? I also found that DRF formulator fact that you referenced for Dan Blacker. I will say, of the 6 winners in that sample, all 6 were on the turf. So maybe it's a kinder surface to bring horses back off of layoffs on. Still, you have to determine how short a price you want to take on a horse with this profile.
We move to Astronomer, who is multiple graded stakes placed. I've chased this guy a lot, David, because you watch a lot of his trips and he puts himself in a good spot. And against a field like this, it's not quite as daunting a task, I think, as some of the graded stakes races he's been in. I've started to warm up to him the more I looked at him. And I think you like him a little bit in here, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's not the most likely winner of this race, and you just look at his career box and you can see why. I mean, he hasn't won a race in the past couple of seasons. His most recent victory came back in 2023, and before that, his most recent victory going 2 wins back was in 2021 at the end of his 2-year-old season. So the wins have been few and far between for Astronomer, and that's the big knock against him. But he has been in pretty solid form over the past few seasons. I mean, you go back to when he started his 2025 campaign pretty late this summer at Del Mar. I thought he ran well behind Almendares off the layoff in that wicker. Then he was a little held up in traffic in that allowance race at the top of the stretch, came through along the inside to be second to final boss 2 back. And then they tried to ship him to Kentucky Downs last time. Not only was that a tough spot, but the race flow wasn't really with him. He was up close to an honest pace. It fell apart towards the end. So I think he's in pretty good form. The other thing I'll note about him, Gino, is when you go back through his form over the past few seasons, all of his top buyer speed figures have been earned at Del Mar. So it really does seem like this is his course. And I could see a pretty good trip coming for him with Antonio Fresu getting aboard.
And a pretty good price too. I think he'll be the type of horse where you kind of look back and you'll go, oh, he's 0 for the last like 14 or 15. But you start diving into those races, the overall body of work. And if you like Almendares a little bit like I do, you're going to probably start to warm up to Astronomer, who could be a much better price and has a couple really good races right next to Almendares. That Seabiscuit last year was very good. So maybe an interesting price horse that when I love doing previews like this, it's for horses like this that we talk it out a little bit. I start warming up to him. This is a horse who I'd absolutely throw in an early pick 5 if you were playing something like that. We move to Old Pal. Kind of know what you're going to get from him, David. He's a deep closer. It's just he's a little light on speed figures and he's a little light on early speed. He's going to drop back. He's going to make one late run. He needs things to set up for him. But the counter would be, if you want to go back to a year ago in November, he's not far behind El Potente, and El Potente will likely be a top contender in here.
No, and if you go back to watch that race from November where he was third behind El Potente, who was second to that race, he got held up in traffic a little bit from about the quarter pole to the 8th pole, was running on a little bit too late at the end. That's kind of the MO for this horse, though. He can leave himself with a little too much to do at times, and he got there in his last race. It was just a little bit flat once he finally had to push past the leaders in the late stage. So I feel like he's got a little bit of hang in him. Maybe he'll do better second off the layoff, but this felt like it could be a tough spot.
Cabo Spirit is just so cool. He's a horse that if you followed him through the years in Southern California, he was good early. Then he's had one or two times where he's tailed off form a little bit for a few races, but he's gotten back in career best form right now. I mean, if you look at his most recent form, a couple close finishes behind Formidable Man, who was second in the Breeders' Cup Mile with 100 buyer speed figure. So all of a sudden, those races behind Formidable Man look even better right now. I mean, Johannes, Formidable Man, King of Gosford, those are the only horses who have beaten him recently. And those are horses who are at the top of the mile division out in Southern California. I mean, his last 6 starts, they're all top 3 finishes in graded stakes races. He has speed. He can sit. He's going to fight you till the end. He's just a really cool horse to root for and to watch now in Southern California.
Yeah, and he's another horse kind of like Astronomer, maybe not to that degree, where he doesn't win that often, but he's always right there. And it feels like he's gained a lot of consistency into his 5-year-old and 6-year-old seasons. Here we're taking a look at his most recent race in the City of Hope Mile, where he gets run down by one of those class horses that you were mentioning, Johannes, who runs by him. Almendares also charging at the end of this race. But I thought Cabo Spirit ran really well to hold on for second here because he had to make the first move around the far turn, swinging 3 wide, losing a little ground to get there at the top of the stretch. So he's just put forth a series of consistent, strong efforts. And if he runs well again here, he's going to be right there on the wire.
Yeah, it just seems like him and Barn over the last year and a half. Papa Padromo's been rolling and doing really well at this meet. We round things out with Stay Hot. He's a grade 3 winner. She won a stakes race at the start of 2025 on the lead at Lone Star. Mike Smith put him on the front end from the inside. And in his last couple of races, I was hoping in both the Del Mar Handicap and the John Henry Turf that he would be a little more forwardly placed in there, David. I think on paper, those races kind of looked like 2-horse races with him and Gold Phoenix as like the top 2 contenders. And in both tries, he didn't really get the jump on Gold Phoenix that I was kind of hoping. Now they're going to cut him all the way back as he's been going a little bit longer. I mean, I think he certainly has some ability, but I'm a little bit worried about the trip he might get on the cutback from way out wide here. What do you think about Stay Hot?
Yeah, it kind of feels like even the connections are not quite sure what to do with this horse because
Yeah.
I understand why they stretched it out to these longer distances. This race, we're taking a look at the John Henry Turf Championship. This was going 10 furlongs. The Del Mar Handicap prior to this was going 11 furlongs. And when you watch some of his shorter races at the end of last season and early this season, he just lacks that turn of foot that you want to see at this level on the turf to win the mile races. So maybe they thought since he lacks that turn of foot, we'll stretch him out where he can make a longer sustained run. He did it last time, but Gold Phoenix got the jump on him in that race. He did get a better trip, I thought, too, back in the Del Mar Handicap, where he was able to sneak through inside and actually led briefly at the 16th pole, just got run down by Gold Phoenix at the end. And I think even over the longer distances, he's just lacking that late punch. So I expect him to run well here. I just question his ability to win at what could be another short price.
Yeah, and you're going to get Hernandez jumping on. You could take that one of 2 ways, right? Mike Smith had, I think, his pick of maybe 3 horses in here because he's been riding Cabo Spirit. He's also been on Sumpter. But, I mean, anytime in Southern California you get Juan Hernandez to jump aboard, it's pretty much an upgrade because he's about as good as it gets out here. And then you look at Gold Phoenix, who went on again and ran pretty well in the Breeders' Cup. He finished 5th. He earned 101 buyer speed figure. He usually punches above his weight class in that race. So we round out the field here for the grade 2 Seabiscuit. David, I think you're going to look look for a little bit more value than I was looking for in here, but I like what you're doing with Astronomer. Talk to us about your selections.
Yeah, I was between a couple of horses in this race, one of which is the horse you put on top, Almendares. He's the logical one for me, and I think in a lot of ways is the most likely winner. Astronomer, not the most likely winner. He's got to prove that he can actually still win races now as a 6-year-old, but I do think his recent form is a little better than it looks. He appears to like this Del Mar turf course, and I'm intrigued by this rider switch to Antonio Fraser, who rides the turf very well out in Southern California.
6385 for David with Astronomer on top. I'll go 3958 with Almendares on top. However you play them, we wish you the best of luck.